The brisket plate at a serious Texas barbecue joint now runs north of $30 a pound, and at the famous spots in Austin, it's closer to $35. Feed a family of 4, and you're looking at a $100 receipt for what began life as the cheapest cut on the entire steer the slab packers could barely give away. But about 140 years ago, butchers in Central Texas worked out a trick for this exact problem, and it still works today. Use it, and that same smoky, jiggling slice costs you a third of the restaurant price, sometimes less. To understand the trick, you have to go back to where brisket came from, because the whole thing only makes sense once you know why this cut was ever cheap in the first place. In 1882, a family of German immigrants opened a meat market in Elgin, Texas, a little cotton town east of Austin, South Side Market. Around 1900, another market opened in Lockhart that would become Kreuz Market, and dozens of shops like them dotted the Czech and German settlements across the hill country. These were butcher shops first. Barbecue was the backup plan. There was no reliable refrigeration in a Texas summer, so any beef that didn't sell fresh by the weekend was headed for the trash. Throwing away meat meant throwing away money, and these were not people who threw away money. So they built brick pits behind the shop, burned post oak because it grew everywhere and burned clean, and smoked whatever hadn't sold. The tough cuts, the ugly cuts, the brisket, a slab of chest muscle so dense with connective tissue that no home cook wanted to fight it. Smoked low and slow for most of a day, that stubborn tissue melted into gelatin, and the cut nobody would buy on Friday became the thing farmhands and cotton pickers lined up for on Saturday. Sold by the pound, slapped on butcher paper, eaten standing up with a stack of crackers. The worst meat in the case became the best food in town, and it stayed dirt cheap for the next century because the raw material was, by definition, the stuff nobody else wanted. Hold on to that economics. The unwanted slab bought whole, with the waste turned into product. That's the trick, all of it, and we're coming back to every piece. Because then somebody went and ruined it, or rather, perfected it so publicly that the whole market repriced. In 2009, a former musician named Aaron Franklin started selling brisket out of a trailer in East Austin. Within a couple of years, the line stretched down the block. Bon Appetit was calling it the best barbecue in America, and every food publication on the planet sent a writer to stand in that line and weep into a slice of fatty point. The brisket boom went national. Steakhouses added it, chain restaurants added it, backyard cooks started demanding it at the grocery store, and by the mid-2010s, wholesale brisket prices had climbed to multiples of what they'd been a decade earlier. By most accounts, the cut roughly tripled in the space of a few years. The garbage cut had become a luxury good, which is a genuinely strange sentence to say about a cow's chest. So the restaurant charges $30+ a pound. The grocery store charges $9 or $10 for a sad little pre-trimmed flat, and it looks like the cheap brisket era is simply over. It isn't. The old butcher's math still has a back door, and it starts with one word: packer. A packer brisket is the whole thing, exactly as it leaves the packing plant. Both muscles, the lean flat and the fatty point, still joined. Fat cap intact, sealed in plastic, usually somewhere between 10 and 14 pounds. This is what every barbecue joint in Texas buys. And here is the number that should make you sit up. That trimmed 2-pound flat in the grocery case might run $9 a pound. The whole untrimmed packer at a warehouse club or a decent market often sits somewhere in the $3 to $5 range per pound. Same animal, same muscle. Sometimes the same case, 4 feet apart. Why the gap? Labor and loss. The moment a butcher trims that slab, portions it, and wraps it in a neat tray, you're paying his time, plus the weight of everything he cut away. The store solved the problem for you and billed you for the solution. The old Texas markets never bought solved problems. They bought the raw, awkward, work-required version of everything because the work was the margin. When you buy the packer, you're stepping into the butcher side of the counter. That's move one. Move two is the grade, and this is where the trick gets counterintuitive. Walk up to the case and you'll see USDA Prime packers sitting next to Choice, with Prime wearing a premium that can add $1 or $2 per pound. The boom taught everyone that Prime is what the famous joints use. So shoppers reach for it like it's a cheat code. Skip it. Remember what the original pit masters were cooking behind those meat markets. Ungraded leftovers. The whole point of a 12-hour smoke is that time and collagen do what marbling does for a steak. A Choice packer, cooked patiently, comes out so close to a Prime one that most eaters at your table could not tell you which was which. And the ones who claim they can are usually the same cousins who swear they can taste the difference between well waters. There's your savings compounding. Cheaper cut, cheaper grade, same result. One thing matters far more than the grade sticker though. Pick the right individual slab. At the case, pick the packer up and bend it. A good one flops over your hand like it's tired. Stiff means the flat is thin and it'll cook out dry at the edges. Floppy wins. Also look at the flat end, the thinner side, and pass on anything that tapers down to less than an inch, because that corner turns to jerky no matter what you do. The old-timers pick meat with their hands, and this 10-second bend test is the last surviving piece of that skill anybody actually needs. Now move 3, and this is the part that separates people who read about barbecue from people who eat it cheap. Talk to the butcher, not the display case, the human. Even at a supermarket, there is usually a person behind that counter who can sell you what's in the back. And the back is where whole packers sleep in their cryovac, in cardboard cases, at prices that never made it to a shelf tag. Ask 3 questions. Do you sell whole untrimmed packers? What's the price if I take a full case? And what day does your beef truck come in? That last one matters because meat bought the day it lands hasn't been trimmed, portioned, or marked up into weekend retail yet. In much of Texas, you can also just walk into a restaurant supply store, no membership, no business license for most of them, and buy the exact cases the barbecue joints buy. Butchers light up for customers who want the ugly work. You're not haggling. You're volunteering to be their easiest sale of the week. 10 plus pounds in one transaction. 0 labor. Plenty of counters will knock the per pound price down for that without being asked twice. At this point, you might be thinking the trick is just buy in bulk. And if that were the whole story, this video would be over. It's the last move that made the original business work, and it's the one modern cooks throw in the trash. Literally. When you trim a packer, you'll cut away somewhere around 2 pounds of fat and ragged edges, and watching 1/5 of your purchase slide off the cutting board hurts. But behind those Lockhart meat markets, nothing slid anywhere. Fat went into the rendering pot, scrap went into the grinder, and the Elgin Market's ground scrap sausage became so beloved that Texans still call the style hot guts and drive across counties for it. So do what the shop did. Render your trimmed fat in a slow oven for an hour and you get a jar of beef tallow, the same liquid gold that famous joints pour over their briskets at the wrap and that specialty stores now happily charge steak prices for. Grind or dice the lean scraps and that's your chili and smash burger stash for the month. The waste pays you back. That single habit is why an 1880s butcher could sell smoked brisket to a field hand for pennies and still make money. And it's why your cost per finished pound is about to look ridiculous. So run the full math on a real Saturday. A 12-pound choice packer at $3.79. A pound costs about $45. You trim 2 pounds, most of which comes back as tallow and grind, and after 12 hours of post-oak smoke and shrinkage, you slice roughly 6 pounds of finished brisket. That's $7.50 per served pound, against 30 plus at the restaurant. A quarter of the price. Better than the third I promised you in the first 30 seconds. And that's before you count the tallow jar and the burger meat sitting in your freezer. Feed 10 people for what 2 plates cost at the joint with the line around the block. Fair warning about what the money doesn't buy, because I'd rather you hear it from me than from a dry flat at midnight. The price of this trick is time. A packer wants a 250-degree fire held steady for 10 to 14 hours, which usually means an alarm going off in the dark and a lawn chair by the pit. The first one you cook will probably be a B-. The third one will embarrass restaurants. And maybe that's the real inheritance here. Those German and Czech butchers didn't smoke brisket to build a legend. They did it because wasting food was unthinkable, and the craft grew out of the thrift, not the other way around. A century later, we've flipped it completely, queuing 4 hours and paying steak money for what poverty invented. The trick was never a secret. It was a Saturday of work that most of us stopped being willing to do. So the question is yours now. Is one long, smoky lawn chair Saturday worth $100 in bragging rights every single month? If you try it, drop your local packer price per pound in the comments, because I'm mapping who's getting robbed and who's living in 2026 like it's 1882. And stick around, because next we're covering the flat versus point divide and why you've probably been slicing the whole thing wrong. Word count 1,848.